Episode 1F. Who were the mound builders? In the ongoing debate about the Book of Mormon and its supposed connection to ancient Native American cultures, one of the most persistent claims by apologists is the idea that the mound-building cultures of the United States are the very peoples described in the Book of Mormon. This theory is built on the premise that the mound-building cultures, which flourished long before European contact, could be the remnants of the ancient civilizations described in the Book of Mormon. However, as we dive into the evidence, this claim falls apart under the weight of historical and archaeological facts. The Effigy mound builders were an indigenous culture that thrived in the Midwest, particularly around the upper Mississippi River. Known for their construction of elaborate animal-shaped mounds, these builders left behind striking evidence of their spiritual and ceremonial lives. As the U.S. National Park Service highlights, these mounds, shaped like bears, birds, and other animals, were carefully aligned with the natural landscape and often served as burial sites. However, while these mounds are undeniably impressive, they offer no support for the claims of the Book of Mormon. The Effigy mound builders, like the Adena and Hopewell cultures before them, left no evidence of the advanced metallurgy, Old World animals, or specific crops described in the Book of Mormon. The animals they depicted in their mound-building practices were symbolic representations of native fauna, bears, eagles, and wolves, not domesticated animals like cattle, swine, or horses, which the Book of Mormon erroneously claims existed in the Americas. This stark disconnect between the Book of Mormon narrative and the archaeological record cannot be overstated. According to the text, pre-Columbian civilizations possessed iron and steel technologies, domesticated animals like horses and oxen, and Old World crops such as wheat and barley. Yet, in every archaeological excavation of effigy mounds and related sites, these items are conspicuously absent. Where are the iron tools or steel swords? The skeletal remains of horses or cattle, the granaries of wheat or barley, they simply don't exist. Instead, the foods unearthed at effigy mound sites tell a very different story, one grounded in reality. Archaeologists have found evidence of maize, corn, beans, squash, wild rice, and other native plants cultivated or foraged by these societies. These were the staples of pre-Columbian North America, not the wheat or barley that would have been familiar to the Old World peoples described in the Book of Mormon. The absence of these key materials and technologies is not a minor inconsistency. It's a damning indictment of the Book of Mormon's claims. Historian and archaeologist David Hurst Thomas put it plainly. The archaeological record shows no trace of steel, iron, or horses in pre-Columbian Native American cultures, and that absence must be taken seriously when evaluating claims of a Book of Mormon connection. Furthermore, the effigy mound builders were part of a continuum of indigenous cultures that constructed mounds for purposes such as burial, ceremonial rituals, and territorial markers. These mounds are not the remnants of the supposed Nephite or Lamanite civilizations. Instead, they stand as enduring monuments to the spiritual beliefs and social organization of real native peoples. The attempt to co-opt these structures into the Book of Mormon narrative erases the rich and complex history of the effigy mound cultures. Rather than supporting the Book of Mormon, the effigy mounds and the broader archaeological record undermine its credibility. They reveal a history far removed from the text's descriptions, rooted in the actual lives of the indigenous peoples of North America, who thrived long before European contact. Part 2. The Mississippian culture. The Mississippian culture represents one of the most advanced pre-Columbian civilizations in North America, renowned for its monumental architecture and complex society. At its peak, the massive settlement of Cahokia, located near modern-day St. Louis, boasted a population of approximately 20,000 people, a remarkable feat for its time. The centerpiece of this city, Monk's Mound, remains the largest pre-Columbian earthwork in North America, standing as a testament to the engineering and organizational prowess of the Mississippian peoples. Yet, for all their accomplishments, Cahokia and its surrounding sites offer no evidence to support the narrative of the Book of Mormon. The material culture unearthed at Mississippian sites tells a story that directly contradicts the claims made in the Book of Mormon. Tools, pottery, and burial artifacts reveal a society that utilized stone, bone, and copper for their tools, not iron or steel. Copper was hammered into ornaments and tools but was never smelted into the advanced forms described in the Book of Mormon. Additionally, the bones of animals found at these sites tell us much about their diet and domestication practices. Deer, turkey, and fish were staples for the Mississippian peoples, as were smaller animals like raccoons and squirrels. These are a far cry from the domesticated cattle, swine, and horses claimed by the Book of Mormon. The crops and plant remains found at Mississippian sites paint a similar picture. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of maize, corn, beans, squash, sunflowers, and a variety of wild berries, including elderberries and blackberries. But there is no sign of wheat, barley, or any other Old World crops that the Book of Mormon insists were cultivated in ancient America. As historian John E. Clark notes, the lack of evidence for domesticated Old World plants and animals in the New World before European contact undermines the historical claims of the Book of Mormon. Population numbers also reveal discrepancies. The Book of Mormon describes vast cities and millions of inhabitants engaged in large-scale warfare, but the largest Mississippian city, Cahokia, peaked at around 20,000 people, a thriving metropolis by indigenous standards, but nowhere near the scale described in the text. These numbers highlight the clear disconnect between the archaeological record and the Book of Mormon's depiction of ancient American civilizations. Furthermore, burial practices at Mississippian sites show a reverence for the dead and a focus on ritual, yet they bear no resemblance to the Nephite or Lamanite customs described in the Book of Mormon. The elaborate burials often included shell beads, copper ornaments, and ceremonial weapons, reflecting a culture deeply rooted in its own spiritual traditions, entirely separate from the supposed Old World influences of the Book of Mormon. The absence of evidence isn't merely an oversight, it's a devastating contradiction. The Book of Mormon describes a world of advanced metallurgy, domesticated animals, and Old World agriculture. Yet the Mississippian culture, one of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian societies, leaves behind no trace of these elements. As archaeologist Alice Beck Cahoe succinctly states, the claims that the mound-building cultures were descendants of Old World peoples introduced by the Book of Mormon are not just unsupported, they are incompatible with the archaeological evidence. The Mississippian culture was a marvel of pre-Columbian innovation, but it was not the civilization described in the Book of Mormon. The attempts to tie these real, vibrant cultures to the myths of the Book of Mormon not only distort history, but also erase the true legacy of the indigenous peoples of North America. Part 3. The Adena and Hopewell cultures. The Adena and Hopewell cultures, often grouped under the broader term mound builders, were some of the most remarkable ancient civilizations in North America. Spanning from roughly 1000 BCE to 500 CE, these cultures thrived in the Ohio River Valley and surrounding areas, creating vast earthworks, intricate burial mounds, and impressive ceremonial sites. Despite their ingenuity and legacy, they bear no resemblance to the civilizations described in the Book of Mormon. These societies used tools made from stone, bone, and copper, just like the other mound-building societies. Copper, while skillfully hammered into tools and ornaments, was not smelted into alloys or advanced metal objects. No evidence of iron or steel production has been found in Adena or Hopewell sites. As archaeologist Kenneth Feder observes, the Book of Mormon depicts a metallurgical sophistication that is simply absent from any pre-Columbian North American context. The Adena and Hopewell peoples relied on wild game such as deer, elk, and turkey for sustenance, along with fish and small mammals like raccoons and beavers. Dogs were the only animals domesticated by these cultures, and they were used primarily as companions or for limited labor. There is no evidence of the widespread domestication of large animals as described in the Book of Mormon. The agricultural practices of the Adena and Hopewell cultures also diverge significantly from the Book of Mormon. These cultures cultivated native crops such as squash, sunflower, sumpweed, and maygrass. Maize began to appear during the later Hopewell period, though it was not yet a staple crop. The absence of Old World crops like wheat and barley, as well as the lack of agricultural techniques mentioned in the Book of Mormon, underscores the stark differences between these real-world societies and the fictional civilizations described in the text. The Book of Mormon describes densely populated cities with millions of inhabitants. In contrast, the Adena and Hopewell peoples lived in smaller, dispersed communities that rarely reached the population density of later cultures like the Mississippians. Their earthworks, while grand and impressive, were ceremonial and burial sites rather than urban centers. These sites served as gathering places for rituals and trade, but were not the bustling metropolises described in the Book of Mormon. The religious and cultural practices of the Adena and Hopewell peoples were deeply rooted in their own indigenous traditions. The Adena are known for their burial mounds, which often included elaborate grave goods such as pipes, jewelry, and carved stone tablets. The Hopewell expanded on this tradition with even larger earthworks and more intricate artifacts. However, these practices bear no resemblance to the religious systems described in the Book of Mormon. The intricate geometric patterns of Hopewell earthworks and the ceremonial use of exotic materials like mica, obsidian, and shark teeth reflect a spiritual and cultural framework entirely distinct from the Nephite and Lamanite narratives. Another critical difference is the absence of a written language among the Adena and Hopewell cultures. The Book of Mormon emphasizes the use of written records, with its peoples engraving histories and scriptures onto metal plates. Yet, there is no evidence of a writing system in Adena or Hopewell societies. Their histories, beliefs, and knowledge were passed down orally, not through written texts, further distancing them from the civilizations depicted in the Book of Mormon. The Adena and Hopewell cultures were extraordinary in their own right, leaving behind a legacy of innovation, artistry, and ceremonial grandeur. However, they do not align with the descriptions of Nephite or Lamanite civilizations in the Book of Mormon. The differences in technology, agriculture, domesticated animals, population size, and cultural practices are not minor. They are fundamental. As historian Charles C. Mann points out in 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus. The archaeological record of pre-Columbian North America reveals complex and vibrant societies, but none that match the accounts of the Book of Mormon. Part 4. Supposed evidence for the Book of Mormon and the Mound Builders. The Adena, Effigy, and Hopewell cultures were remarkable examples of ancient innovation, artistry, and community in pre-Columbian North America. Their legacy includes earthworks that still baffle modern archaeologists, intricate burial mounds, and thriving trade networks spanning thousands of miles. Yet for all their brilliance, these indigenous societies bear zero resemblance to the so-called Nephite or Lamanite civilizations described in the Book of Mormon. Let's start with the most glaring issue. The Book of Mormon claims that its civilizations descended from Middle Eastern peoples who crossed the ocean and established a new society in the Americas. The archaeological record offers no support for this claim. The Effigy, Adena, and Hopewell peoples were unequivocally indigenous to North America, with genetic markers tracing their ancestry back to ancient migrations from Siberia and Mongolia over 18,000 years ago. As geneticist Michael Crawford concluded, Native American populations show no evidence of recent Middle Eastern ancestry. Their genetic makeup aligns entirely with an East Asian origin. If the civilizations described in the Book of Mormon ever existed, their physical, genetic, and cultural footprints are conspicuously absent. No amount of hand-waving about lost civilizations can reconcile this fundamental contradiction. The Book of Mormon describes massive cities teeming with millions of inhabitants, yet the largest settlements of the Effigy, Adena, and Hopewell cultures were small, dispersed communities. Even their ceremonial centers, while impressive, were not urban hubs in the sense described in the Book of Mormon. At their height, these cultures maintained small regional populations, far removed from the dense city-building societies the text claims. The Adena, Effigy, and Hopewell peoples left behind a treasure trove of artifacts, stone and copper tools, elaborately designed pottery, pipes, and ornaments crafted from materials like mica and obsidian. But these items belong to an entirely different cultural and technological context than what the Book of Mormon describes. Not a single artifact from these cultures supports the existence of the civilizations claimed in the text. Joseph Smith's claim to have uncovered the remains of Zelph, a supposed white Lamanite, near a mound on the banks of the Mississippi River, is one of the most brazen examples of historical fiction masquerading as archaeology. Despite Smith's insistence that this was a warrior from the Book of Mormon, there is no evidence to support this claim. The skeleton found was consistent with the burial practices of Native Americans, not Middle Eastern transplants, and the story of Zelph is little more than an opportunistic attempt to link indigenous mounds to the Mormon narrative. Modern DNA analysis leaves no room for doubt. Native American populations are descended from ancient Siberians and East Asians, with no genetic ties to the Middle East. This scientific reality utterly dismantles the Book of Mormon's narrative of ancient migrations from Israel. The genetic markers Joseph Smith might have hoped would validate his story simply do not exist. These mound-building cultures are not the Nephites, Lamanites, or Jaredites. They are not Middle Eastern. They did not use steel, and they did not domesticate horses or cattle. These indigenous societies were distinctly North American, with their own traditions, technologies, and histories that predate the Book of Mormon's supposed timeline by thousands of years. It's time to stop forcing the rich history of Native American cultures into a fabricated narrative that doesn't align with the evidence. The archaeological record speaks loudly and clearly. The Book of Mormon is fiction, and the real history of the Americas deserves to stand on its own, free from distortion and appropriation. Recent archaeological discoveries continue to dismantle the myths propagated by early settlers. Excavations at sites like Cahokia and Dyer Mound reveal complex societies with sophisticated technologies, such as ceramics, microdrills, and extensive urban planning. These findings underscore the ingenuity of the mound builders and their ability to adapt to changing environmental and social conditions. At Dyer Mound in Georgia, for example, evidence shows that European contact, particularly the introduction of diseases by De Soto's expedition, led to population collapse and cultural disruption. This decline was not the result of some inherent weakness or inferiority, but the catastrophic consequences of colonization. The mound builders' legacy is not a footnote in history. It is a powerful testament to the resilience and creativity of indigenous peoples. Their achievements were stolen from them, not just through physical conquest, but through the deliberate rewriting of history. It's time to set the record straight. Thank you so kindly for watching. This is the Ex-Mormon Informant signing off for today.